All right, Shabbos, good morning. Good morning. Agizint and Zimmer. It's a great zuchos Baruch Hashem to be able to continue in this limud together. Great zuchos to continue in the parak of Ezehu Neshech, which is not easy, but incredibly exciting, and we have some really, really fascinating and riveting Gemara's ahead of us today, in coming days as well. Begin by thanking all of our sponsors, to thank our TALMUD TORAH sponsors for the month of Nissan, Saeed Sima Haken, for dedicating all the Sherman Drushos this month to show their Hakarat Hatov to Hashem, for all of his Nisim and Niflaos. May Hakadosh Baruch Hu continue to bestow his rachmanus upon us, redeem all of the hostages, bring Hatzlacha to our soldiers, and complete Hatzlacha to Am Yisrael and to EretzYisrael and Am Yisrael, father, Martin Buck, Motle ben Chaim Leib HaKohen. Our week of learning sponsors, Paul and Kathy Pollack, memory of Paul's mother, Florette Pollack, Sarah Bas Avrohom, Zichron Livracha. We hope that in the merit of our TALMUD TORAH, the Nishan will have an aliyah, and the family in a chamra. So with that, let us begin. Today's daf is Samech Gimel 63, and we are picking up EretzYisrael on the last line of Samech Beis Amud Beis 62b. 62b. The Gemara says, Ela Amar Rava. So let's just remember again, we are in the midst of trying to go ahead and interpret the Mishnah. So Rava comes along now and is offering a different interpretation of the Mishnah. And I will say, just to point out, as we interpret this Mishnah, we're also picking up different concepts regarding ribis. The way you're going to see this parak will work a little bit is it'll appear to be a little bit backwards, like the Mishnah, the parak, the Gemara, jumped into ribis. And actually, interestingly enough, like in some of those complicated parts of ribis, like for example, this sugya that we're doing over here now, what we call pesika ala peros, which essentially means like a future contract. Future contract is among the more complicated topics of ribis. It's interesting that we're starting over here. You're going to see, for example, in tomorrow's Mishnah, we're going to speak about just some more basic concepts. So we kind of jumped in. The good news is we were thrown into the deep end of ribis. The great part about being thrown into the deep end is, right? You sink or swim, and we're still here. So Baruch Hashem. So we're treading. We're going to tread a little bit more in EretzYisrael, and then again, every day build up our ribis skills a little bit until you're going to be answering shilas like no one's business. Your phone's going to be ringing off the hook. You're going to say, I heard you're doing this in Daf Yomi. Can you answer a couple of complicated business-related questions? You say, no problem. All right, so I'll say with that, let us go. Elam Rabba. Kishachivna Raboshia. So what's this? Says Kishachivna. So Rabba said like this: When I die, Rabbi Oshia Nafik Levasi. So Rabbi Oshia is going to escort me into Gan Eden. Look at Rashi, last Rashi in the daf. Kishachivna Rabbi Oshia Nafik Levasi. Kisha Amos. Rabbi saying, when I die, Rabbi Oshia Yetze Likrasi. Rabbi Oshia already passed away. Rabbi Oshia is going to come out of Gan Eden to escort me into the world to come. I will say thank you so much, Mashi, thank you. That is a dramatic statement. So again, Rava saying, when Rava die, Rabbi Oshia, who already died, who predeceased me, is going to come out of Gan Eden to come and to escort me into the world to come. Now why is that? Top of Samach Gimel 63. Why? The mitaratzta masnisin kavase. Because I'm interpreting the Mishnah, I've interpreted the Mishnah in accordance with his logic. So we'll say, we actually saw this Gemara in Bava Kama as well. So we'll say, so what does this mean? First of all, look at Rashi. The mitaratzna masnisin kavase, sha'ani ragil litaretz mishnayos, shesasam Rebbe, kibraisa shesasam hu, v'tikavase. So we'll say, so again, Rashi over here quotes this Gemara from Bava Kama as well. Rava often interpreted Mishnayos in accordance with Roshia. So therefore Rabbi said, almost as like a sign of gratitude, when I die, Rabbi Oshia is going to leave Gan Eden, he's going to leave the world to come, and he's going to come and escort me into Olam Haba, into the world to come as well. So we'll say, so I just want to point out something very beautiful over here. This is reminiscent. So obviously, Rava's saying this, I don't think it's tongue-in-cheek. Really, there's a concept that will say that when you say something over in the name of a Talmud Chacham, right? When you say over the Torah of a Talmud Chacham was passed away, the Gemara says, Sivsosav dovavos bekever. His lips move in the grave. And the idea over here is that part of the power that a Talmud Chacham has, part of the eternality that he has, is that even when his physical life comes to an end, his Torah continues to. So we know this, right? On Thursday nights we learn Torah the Piyash It's amazing how you could feel a closeness to someone, right, who died, again, you never met, PHS is contemporary, but how is it that you can feel a connection to someone who you never met? And the answer is through their Torah. Through the Torah. So obviously over here, so Rav is saying that Rav Oshi is going to have like a Hakarat Hatov, is going to have a sense of gratitude to me, because I'm interpreting Mishnayos in accordance with him. How is Rav Oshi going to express that gratitude? He's going to come and to greet me. When I die, he's going to come and greet me and escort me into the world to come. There's one more piece of this Rav said that again, so just a reminder, we spoke about over Yantiv doing Mesecha Sota. Over the I know that I have to post a couple of days of davening in Eretz Hashem, but it's a great project for Sira, great project. 1 blot a day, 49 blot, be Messiahing the Masechta in Eretz Hashem. I don't remember which daf it is, but the Gemara says that when a person does a mitzvah, so that mitzvah is mikadmasa b'holechas lefanav. When you do a mitzvah, we'll say all mitzvahs that you do, they almost like they precede you, not precede you. They go before you to the world to come. I'm sorry? Pave the way. They pave the way. This idea that, and Israel says, it's such an incredible idea. So whenever you do a mitzvah, so kind of like we do a mitzvah, then it's over. Just understand that mitzvah is paving the way for me to get to the world to come. And in fact, again, the Gemara says that when you go to Olam Haba after 120, your mitzvos come out to greet you. What you do in this world paves the way and almost again sets up the reception for you in the afterlife. It's such a beautiful and overwhelming thought, and it's almost like what Rav is saying over here, that when I die, Rabbi Oshia, right? I interpreted a lot of Mishnayos like Rabbi Oshia is going to pave the way for me, and Rabbi Oshia is going to come and greet me. Rabbi say, what we do in this world not only establishes the portion that we are going to have in the next world, not only paves the way for the Olam Haba we're going to have, but after 120, the good we do in this world comes out and greets us as we make our journey to the afterlife. Incredible. All right, the Gemara says as follows. So the Tanah Rabbi Oshia, what did Rabbi Oshia say? Rashi, thank you, delicious. The Gemara says as follows. The Torah Boshia, Hari Shahaya Noshe Bechaver Amanas. So this is actually a really interesting case. So this is a take on our Mishnah's case. So we'll say, watch this. So I lent Ruvain $1,000. V'halach v'amad al gorano v'amar tein li ma'osi shani rosi likach ban chitin. So what happens? I lent Ruvain Ruvain owes me $1,000. So I go to Ruvain's granary. I say, Ruvain, listen, do me a favor, pay me back, because and I tell him, so I just want to point out something. Generally, when you lend someone money and you want to get paid back, you don't have to tell them why you want to get paid back, right? In other words, I lent you money, pay me back my money. It just happens to be in these cases, I'm divulging information. So I go over to Ruvain. So I lent Ruvain $1,000. Good. Debt is due. I come to Ruvain's granary. I say, Ruvain, you know what? Pay me back my money. Just, by the way, I'm really in the market for grain. So Reuven says, okay, good news. You came to the right place. Right? I happen to have grain. So why don't I pay you back with grain instead of money? And what happens? Say, va'ason alai kishar shal achshav. So we'll say, and Reuven says, let's just, now again, I know that I owe you $1,000. How much wheat does $1,000 get you? Let's just see what the current price is. Let's remember again, this is the phrase, we've seen this many times, Yatsa Hashar. Yatsa Hashar means the price is known. So Reuven says, no problem. No problem with converting, in other words, what Rav Oshia is saying, no problem with converting a debt onto a commodity. So let's take the $1,000 and let's convert that to wheat based on the current value of wheat. Great. So now what we've done is, we've taken a debt, and we've transformed it, still a debt, but we've transformed it from ma'os, from money, onto chitin, onto wheat, onto commodity. So from ma'os to commodity. Okay, so now what happens? So we do it. And now let's say again, just for argument's sake, that gets me 3 bushels of wheat. Just for argument's sake. Okay, now we'll say, but just to point out, I didn't take possession of the wheat. Right? So now, Reuven owes me $1,000 worth of wheat. Okay, based on current prices. Fine. He gives man chit and limkar. So we'll say now it's time to sell the wheat. Now we'll say, Rashi points out that it's been time selling. Now, at this point, apparently, I don't need the wheat. In other words, when I bought, so to speak, when I had this entitlement of wheat from Reuven, I didn't need it. It's more like investment wheat. but now we'll say the price of wheat has really gone up, and so I go back to Reuven and I say, okay, Reuven, give me my wheat. Give me my wheat, right? I go back to Reuven. Giyazman chitin limkar amarlo tein li chitin shani rotze lemachran v'likach bahen yayin. So once again, what do? I go over to Reuven and I say, Reuven, do me a favor. That wheat, that I have by you, give it to me because I want to sell it. Baruch Hashem, the price of wheat has really gone up. I want to sell the wheat, and I'd like to buy wine. One thing I will say. I'm just divulging a little. There are people like this, right, who need to tell you every single thing. So I'm one of those guys, right? So I'm telling you, I want to go ahead and buy wine. So what happens? Amarlo, Reuven says, great. Yeshli yayin shayno sin lecha, say va'ason alai kishar shel achshav. So he says, no problem. Why don't we just do this? Why don't we just convert the debt from wheat to wine? So let's go. I owed you $1,000 of wheat. So let's go and figure out what $1,000 of wine is worth. And again, current prices. This is current prices. Let's establish it right now. Higiyazman yayin limkar. So let's now fast forward a little bit. So fine. So now both say. So just again, mamish. This this is a chagaja. This is mamish a chagaja, right? Isru chag, we get a chagaja, right? So I lent Reuven $1,000. I come to collect my money. I want to buy wheat. He says, no problem. I'll give you $1,000 worth of wheat based on current prices. Fantastic. So now he owes me $1,000 worth of wheat. I go to collect the wheat. Say, I want to give me my wheat. I want to sell the wheat because I want to buy wine. Reuven says, no problem. I've got wine. So now we convert the debt onto wine. Next, higia zman yayin limkar. So now, again, wine is very expensive, Baruch Hashem, so I want to cash out. So I say, you know what? Give me my wine because I want to go ahead and sell the wine, and I want to use the proceeds to buy oil. Remember, for me, this is an investment. Right? So I'm just looking to go ahead and simply buy whatever commodity is best. But I need to liquefy my commodity. Liquefy? Yeah, okay, liquidate. I see everybody's tired. No one corrected me. I need to liquidate. I think it's liquidate. All right, v'likach ba'al shemen. Amar lo, so I will say, it's good. What does Reuven say? It's amazing. Reuven has everything but money, right? It's incredible, right? He's got everything. Guy's managed like a general store. He just does not have money. So what happens? So Amarlo Sheva Yeshli Shayno Simcha. No problem. I got oil. Right? So what happens? Lech Tzei Va'aseu Alai Kishar Shal Achshav. So the Gemara says the halacha is Kulam Im Yesh Lo Mutar Ein Lo Asar. So the Rebbe say the halacha is all of this works. As long as what? As long as Reuven has the commodity itself. So this is the position. Rabbi Moshe says you could make future contracts, forward contracts, future contracts. You could do that as long as the person. In this case, the relationships are interesting because as long as it's the seller/debtor, right? Because remember, the way this is working is Reuven starts out as my borrower, as my debtor. He then becomes a seller at different points in the interval. So this works as long as Reuven has the commodity in stock. Now remember again, in these type of transactions, what are we concerned about? We're concerned that the object becomes worth more later on than it is now. Now remember, this is not going to be biblical ribis, right? Because psika ala peros, these forward contracts, remember again, at most are rabbinic interest, and more because they look like interest. I'm essentially purchasing a commodity right now at a particular value, and when I take possession of it, ultimately it's worth more. So I will say, so anytime you are locking in something now, and if you wait, it's worth more later on, we'll discuss in just a little bit, that looks like ribis. So what Rav Moshe has established, Rav Moshe has established is, as long as Reuven has the commodity with him, when we make this agreement, that's fine. We'll say, what's the logic of that? What's the logic? The logic is, because if Reuven has the commodity and I'm essentially buying it, it's as if what's occurred? It's as if he's given it to me. So even though it's in his possession, it's as if I have received it already, and therefore, halacha l'maisa, there's no ribis. So we'll say this is the position of Rabbi Shia. Now again, we know there's another way to do this with Yatzah Shar, but we're going to focus Rabbi Shia now. So Rabbi therefore says, this is our Mishnah. You want to do a forward contract, which essentially means now, and I will say the way this always works is, it starts with a loan. It starts with a loan. And then the borrower, although it doesn't have to, as we'll see, and then the borrower says, instead of me paying you back money, I know you want the wheat. So I'll give you $1,000 worth of wheat. It's fine. And again, Rabbi Shia's chap is, you can keep on converting this to commodity, to commodity, to commodity, to commodity. It makes no difference, as long as what? As long as Ruvain has the commodity. Because this way, even if it appreciates, isn't that ribis? No, because since he has it at the time, since he had it at the time he made the transaction, it's as if I already received it, and therefore, again, no even appearance of ribis. Beautiful, beautiful. So the Gemara says as follows. Ein lo asar. However, again, I will say in all these cases, if Ruvain does not have the commodity, then of course it is going to be asar. Okay, so the Gemara says, umay lakach. So what does it mean when the Mishnah, when it says again, lakach, purchased? Lakach bahal va'aso. It means I'll say purchased with his loan. Because remember, again, I will say, the way this works, how does this start? Starts with a loan. So essentially what I end up doing is, I end up purchasing the wheat, which is the first commodity, with my loan money. Amar Rava, so Rava says, Shma mina mit Rabbi Shia tlas. You can learn three things from Rabbi Shia. Number one, Shma mina, Dima'amidin melva al gabe peros. So v'delo amrinon delo ki surah habaliyadu. So we'll say the first thing we see is that halacha l'maisa, essentially you could convert ultimately again a commodity, or you could convert a loan ultimately again into a commodity transaction. And we don't say that this is like a case of where the Isser has not come to his hand. We'll say that was yesterday's daf. And that would be a kasha on Rava. Ushmaminas, that's number one. So the number one thing you can learn is, and also we're going to try to simplify some of these ideas over here, just so we can begin to distill down the principles of ribis, right? Because again, like I said, we're thrown into a little bit of a deep end over here. We're starting with a more nuanced ribis concept of, remember, we'll say the term to remember over here, psika al haperos. Psika al haperos, or in English, a future transaction. We're converting a loan into a commodity transaction. Sounds pretty scary from a ribis perspective, because if that commodity appreciates and I have not taken possession of it, isn't that ribis? Rabbi Shia says, not a problem, as long as, well, okay, so let's go. So let's go in order. So number one, we've established that you can convert a loan onto a commodity transaction. Number one. Number two, shma mina tiyeshlo. Number two, I will say, that only works if what? How can you transform a loan onto a commodity transaction? As long as what? The borrower / who becomes the seller has it. I lend Ruvain $1,000. I come for payment, and I say to Ruvain. I will say, by the way, also I want to point out, obviously, Ruvain can't force me to convert it to a commodity. Remember, the whole reason why this comes up over is because I'm saying, obviously, I want wheat. If I don't want wheat, then I want money. Then I have every right to money. But again, so then number two. So number one is you could convert a loan into a commodity transaction. Number two, you can go ahead and this only works if what? If the borrower Ruvain has the commodity in stock. So in other words, I lend Ruvain $1,000. I come back to get paid back for my debt. And what happens? And Ruvain says, and I say, because I want to buy wheat. Ruvain says, no problem. I have wheat. That's fine. We could now transform this into a commodity transaction as long as Ruvain has it. Next, Ushmamina Isa l'Rabayanai. And I'm about to say, ultimately, again, we clearly accept the position of Rabbi Yanai. What did Rabbi Yanai say? Rabbi Yanai, mali hein, mali demehen. That ultimately, again, Rabbi Yanai said that halacha l'maisa, what does it matter ultimately, again, if it's the money or if it's the value of money, which essentially says that halacha l'maisa, we can do this type of, we could commoditize a loan. Incredible. So I'll say, so let's go. So the Gemara explains this last part. What's this, Rabbi Yanai? Rabbi Yanai says, the itmar, Rav Amar. Okay, we'll say, good, clear so far. We're going to go slow. I realize over here as my sons were giving daf, I can't think as quickly as they speak. Right, so Baruch Hashem, can I know how youth is good. Youth if you could. Okay, so we're gonna take. You see, we're gonna take this slow. So this is short of death anyway. We have time. That is, we're gonna take this slow. So that way again we have all of these parts. So let's say. So what we're coming out of here is just to follow the flow over here. Rava is interpreting the Mishnah like Raboshia, and Halacha L'Mais was coming out from Roshia is these three concepts, which really for our purposes are really two primary ideas. Number one, you could commoditize a loan. That is called psika ala peros, a forward or a future contract. Okay, that will say, but according to Raboshia, this only works if you satisfy one major criteria, which is two words. Yesh lo. He has Ruvain, who in our case is the borrower. Ruvain has the commodity. Beautiful. Okay, let's go back there. The Itmar. So now this Rabbi Yanai piece. Let's talk about this. The Itmar. Rav Amar Osin Amana Beperos, Vein Osin Amana Bedamin. Okay, so we'll say, now this is actually very interesting. So Rav says like this. You could say Amana is the same thing as Psika La Peros. Right? Amana literally means trust. But again, what this means is a future contract. So you could engage in a future contract with produce, but not with money. Now, what does that mean? Take a look at Rashi. This is fascinating. Rashi says, Osin amana beperos, third of the intermediate lines. Osin beperos, nosin mos ba'amana kishar shal achshav shiyotze b'shuk, amanas lekabal peros afilu yokrin chitin. So we'll say, watch this. So it's the same idea. We'll say, this is a straight out forward or future contract. Avi Fogel. We were talking about this before before last night. Avi asked me about futures. So we'll say, so now what? This is it. So watch this. I want to buy wheat now. We'll say, so Rashi says over here, Nostin most ba'amana kishar sha'achshav shiotze b'shuk amanas l'kabel peros afiru yokrin chitin. So I want to buy wheat now at the current price. But I will say, I'm not going to take possession of it until whatever, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, a year from now. But what am I doing? I'm locking in current prices, knowing full well that ultimately, again, it may appreciate. Okay, so that's what I say. It's called an amana. Now, Rav says, you could do this with produce. You can't do this with money. What does it mean? Money. We'll say Rashi says, "Inos and amana livsok ala perus kedei lekabel damim lechashio kiru dechevon dezuzi yav zuzi shakal mechse krevisa." Now we'll say, now this is actually very interesting. What happens if I make the following agreement with Ruvain? I'm giving you now $1,000 for wheat. Okay. Now I'm going to take possession of the wheat in a year from now. If the wheat appreciates, so I want one of two options: either to get we'll call it, let's say $1,000 of wheat. Well, $1,000 of wheat today buys 10 bushels. So I'm taking possession a year from now from this. And a year from now, if wheat goes up, I reserve the right for the following: either A, to take 10. What did I say? How many bushels? 10. Sorry, to take 10 bushels of wheat, or to cash out at the future value of the wheat. Right? So let's say if wheat appreciates, I either reserve the right to take those same 10 bushels, or let's say again, in a year from now, if it appreciates, let's say then 10 bushels is worth $1,200. You agree to cash me out at $1,200. So Rav says you can't do that. Now why can't you do that, I will say? Because that looks like ribbis. Right? Why does that look like ribbis? Because I'm giving Ruvain $1,000 now, and what is he giving me back? $1,200. So therefore, I will say, so essentially Rav says you could do a future contract on commodities, but you can't do a future contract that allows you to cash out at the higher rates. We'll talk more about this. Rabbi Yana says, no, malihin mali dinner. Rabbi Yana says the same thing. It's the same thing. We'll say, in other words, essentially, if I take possession of 10 bushels of wheat in a year from now, 10 bushels of wheat is what? It's $1,200. So what does it matter if you're getting $1,200 ultimately, again, in wheat, or you're getting $1,200 in cash? It's the same thing. Okay, so the Gemara is like this. So we'll say, so look at, fine. So the Gemara says, Meisvei, so that's Rabbi Yanai. Good. So the Gemara says, Meisvei, good. All right, more to say that, but we're going to come back to that case. Meisvei, kulam im yeshlo mutter. So we'll say, so remember again, what did we say? Now, the whole chap of Rabbi say that Rav is setting this up as Rabbi Oshia. Rabbi Oshia holds that psika leperos, future contracts only work if what? If the borrower/seller has the commodity with him. Okay? Now we'll say, now this is a kasha on Rav, because Rav said that Allah doesn't have to have it with him. Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav, Bishem Mashach. No, what's the case? the cases where I did Mashicha. I did Mashicha with Ruvain. The Gemara says, I understand. So if I did Mashicha, then what is there to talk about? Was because what I didn't do Mashicha. Rather, what happened? Ruvain gave me a specific corner for me to be able to have that wheat. So because he went ahead and he gave me a specific corner, there's a heightened level of quasi-ownership that's occurring over here. Look at Rashi. Rashi says over here, by giving me a corner in which that wheat could technically be stored, therefore, halacha l'maisa, there's a quasi-ownership that's taking place. All right, Shmuel says, Hamani Rabbi Hudahi. Rabbi said, this is fascinating. No. Whose opinion does this reflect over here? This is Rabbi Huda. What does Rabbi Huda hold? Rabbi Huda holds Sad Echad Beribis Mutter. Okay, so let's talk about this in just a moment. Like I said, we're really getting thrown into the deep end of Ribis over here, Bosai, without like a lot of introductory information, but that's okay. It'll come together. So we'll say Sad Echad Beribis essentially means like this. If you have a transaction that may or may not result in ribis, Rabbi Huda holds it's permitted. That's called sad echad beribis. There's one possibility that there will be ribis, and another possibility that there won't be ribis. Rabbi Huda holds such a transaction is mutter. Okay, so now that's the explanation. Now let's see it inside. So here we go. We'll say the Gemara says Disanya. Listen to this case. Disanya. Here, if you take, okay, fine, let's read the case, we'll do Rashi. Nissan. We'll say, watch this. I lent Reuven $1,000. So we'll say, so what did Reuven do? Reuven gave me his field as collateral. So we'll say, now, look at Rashi just a moment. Rashi says, actually, before I get to Rashi, sorry. Bisman shamocher ochal peros mutter. So now we'll say, Reuven is the seller, so to speak. So when Ruvain is now, we'll say, so okay, I lent Ruvain $1,000. He gave me the field. So we'll say, so now obviously there's a number of different scenarios that could occur over here, right? Scenario number one is that Ruvain pays me the debt, and what? I give him the field, right? Scenario number two, Ruvain defaults on the debt, and I acquire the field. And I will say, by the way, if I acquire the field, in reality, I acquire the field retroactively. Right? So now we'll say, now watch this. Now, why does this matter? So now I'm holding field. Let's say the duration of the debt is for a year. So I have this field, and the field has produce. So we'll say, so who gets to consume the produce? So what's the problem? The problem over here is, let's play this out. If Reuven defaults, and I end up keeping the field, and I've been consuming the produce, then what's the halacha? All good. If Reuven pays the debt, and I give him back the field, and I've been consuming the produce, what's the problem? Ribis. Why? Because now I'm getting back payment plus the produce. But I will say, but what's interesting about this transaction? It's possible it'll be ribis, but it's also possible it won't be ribis. That's called tzad echad beribis. What best? I don't know, like a good, like concise definition, but it means essentially a possible ribis scenario. Like we'll call it that, a possible ribis scenario. So now take a look at Rashi for just a moment. Rashi says, so I'm sorry, let's just finish up. So the Gemara says, so bisman sham ochra peros mutter. So we'll say, if Ruvain is the one who's consuming the produce of the field during the duration of the loan, that's fine. Lokeach ochal peros aser. So the Tanna Kama says that I, the lender, cannot consume the peros. Right? Why not? Why can't I consume the peros? Because halacha l'may says a possible ribis. Rabbi Huda omer af bisman shalokeach ochal peros mutter. So Rabbi Huda says no. Rabbi Huda says we gotta pick up the pace here. We're 6 already. Okay. Rabbi Huda says like this. Rabbi Huda says that halacha l'may it's mutter. I can consume the peros. Why Rabbi Say? Sad echad ribis. Okay. So Rabbi Huda ma'aseh bebaitos ben zonin she'asa sadeo mecher api Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah v'lokeach ochal peros haya. So Rabbi Huda says, guys, I want to tell you there was a ma'aseh shahaya, an episode baitos ben zonin. And what did baitos ben zonin do? He did this exact idea. He did this exact idea. He went ahead and had a loan transaction, and his field was given to the creditor, and the creditor consumed the payros during the duration of the loan, and ultimately, again, it was fine. So they said to Rabbi Yehuda, Misham Raya, that's your proof. Mochra ochol payrosu. Well, okay, actually, sorry, Rabbi Yehuda, you got your facts wrong. You got your facts wrong, right? Your facts, number one, is that ultimately it was the borrower who was considered Rosh. So we'll say, because remember again, so this is fundamental machlokes. Just we'll say, this case happens to be an interesting one. We're going to talk about this, about when you have collateralized property, so who gets to eat the produce? Because again, you are running into a potential ribis issue should the borrower pay back, and then it turns out that the creditor is getting principal plus produce, plus interest. So both sides. So again, keep that over. So my benayu, what's the machlokes over here? Good. So both sides, so machlokes over here, so therefore both sides, just keep a running tally of these different machlokes. Right? So far, remember again, we've got Rabbi Shia. Rabbi Shia kind of is like, Rabbi Shia is telling us that in psika ala peros, future contracts, it works as long as what? Yeshlo. As long as the borrower has the actual produce. They won't say, so now something interesting. What do you do with this case over here? What do you do in a possible ribis scenario? Machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanon. Rabbi Yehuda says it's not ribis. Rabbanon say it is ribis. Next, Rava Amarava says, this is so fascinating. Ribis amanas lahach sir ikabinayu. They will say, what about an interest transaction where ultimately the halacha, where the parties agree that if there is ribis, they will return the ribis. If there is ribis, they'll return the ribis. So the Gemara says, that Rashi points out to her, Rabbi Yehuda holds that even in a case of ribis amanas lahachsir, the transaction is still prohibited. I'm sorry, just the opposite. Rabbi Yehuda says that if it's ribis amanas lahachsir, if your condition is good, if there is interest, you will return it. Rabbi Yehuda holds ultimately again that it's mutter. The Rabbanon will say that it's asr. Amar Rava says, hashta da Amar Rabbi Yanai. So we'll say, now that Rabbi Yanai said, Amar Beis, Mali hein mali demehen amina. So we'll say, now that Rabbi Yanai said that halacha l'maisa, when it comes to psika la peros, right, which is a future commodity transaction, what does it matter ultimately again if it's the commodity or it's money? So the Gemara says, Mali demehen umali hein nami amiran. So we'll say, so ultimately again, we would also say that halacha l'maisa. We would say, so in other words, now that Rabbi Yanai, so we'll say, if you take a look, actually, let's say this outside. So Rashi points out over here, but psika ala peros, yochol, loses peros adamin. Right? So we'll say, so ultimately, again, in any case, so remember, this was Rabbi Yanai, let's say, this is what we saw before, Rabbi Yanai said, in a case of a future or forward contract, that Allah Chalamayis, if there's appreciation, you can cash out. You can cash out at either the commodity or the appreciated price. So now that Rabbi Yanai said, Mali demehen umali hein nami aminon. Furthermore, uposkin al hashar shebashuk v'afal pi she'elo. All right, we'll say, here it is. We alluded to this in yesterday's daf, but here it is in the most dramatic way. So we'll say, we've been getting competing stories about this psika ala peros. When you have a future or a forward contract, so Rabbi Shia was saying, in order for that to be permitted, so the borrower has to have the commodity, right? If I want to go over to Reuven and say, Reuven, I lent you $1,000, Reuven, but I want to buy wheat. Reuven says, no problem, I have wheat. Let's convert the loan that I owe you into wheat that I owe you. So Rabbi Shia said, no problem. You can do it as long as what? As long as halacha l'maaseh yeshlo. As long as Reuven has the commodity. Rabbi Yanai says, you don't need yeshlo. In order to do a forward contract, what do you need? Yatsa hashar. That the price is known. As long as the price is known, so we know exactly what the commodity is worth, even if Reuven doesn't have it, we can still go ahead and do this type of future forward contract. Uposkin al hashar shabashuk v'yafa pi she'elo. So we're going to see why this is in just a moment. Eisvei Rav Papa Rav Huna Breid Rabbi Yoshua Rava Kulam and Yesh Lamotra in Lo Aser. But I don't understand. We were just saying this entire time that a future contract only works if what? If the borrower of Reuven has the commodity. And here Rabbi Yanai is saying no, even if he doesn't have it, as long as the market price is established, we could do this. So the Gemara says, what's going on over here? Amar Lahu, Hasam Halva, Hacha Zvini. In Rabbi Oshia's case, it's actually interesting. In Rabbi Oshia's case, Rabbi Oshia was talking about a loan converted into a commodity. So that's different. When you have a loan converted into a commodity, Rabbi Oshia is going to suggest that in order for that to work, the Ruvain, the borrower has to have the commodity with him. However, when Rabbi Yanai says that you could do a future or forward contract, even if Ruvain doesn't have the commodity, as long as the market price is known, that's talking about a sale. A sale. Okay, so therefore again, right. Good. So the Gemara says, so Rav Yossi Tamri Tarvayu, my time, Rabbanan Poskin ala Shar, Shibashok. So I say, so why? So now let's analyze this. So I'll say, so now I just want to point out over here something very interesting. So now we have two different ways in which this forward future contract could work. Either number one, Yeshlo, Ruvain has the commodity, or Yotza Hashar, the current market price is known. The current market price is known. Now, what the Gemara is suggesting over here is that maybe these two things apply to two different types of transactions. When we're talking about a loan being converted into a commodity, that's when you need yeshlo. When you're just talking about just a straight out sale, I'm buying wheat now to take possession at a later time, right? So I will say, so that could work as long as what? The current market price is known. Okay, so that's what the Gemara is suggesting, but it could very well be, by the way, that at the end of this start, at the end of this journey, really I will say, you could do a forward contract as long as you have either of these two. Either Yeshlo or Yatsa Shabosi. Let's talk about right now, knowing current market price. Here we go. So the Gemara is like this. So the Gemara says, my time, so we'll say, let's play this out. So either way, by the way, right? So let's say I go over to Ruvain, right? I lend Ruvain $1,000. I go back to Ruvain and say, Ruvain gave me my money. I want to go in and buy wheat. Ruvain says, oh, you want wheat? I have wheat. So what do? We commoditize the loan. Or for that matter, again, I go over to Ruvain and I say, Ruvain, I want to buy $1,000 of wheat now, but I'm not taking possession of it for another year, right? A future contract. So I will say, so these cases work as long as what? We know the market price. Why is that? Even though Ruvain does not have the commodity. So why does knowing the market price take away any aspect, potential appearance of ribis? Because also, remember again, let's just repeat it once more. What are we concerned about in this transaction? What am I concerned about in a transaction where I am buying a commodity but not taking possession of it until a later date? What are we concerned about? Appreciation. So that, because now I'm buying $1,000 of wheat, and it's possible about when I actually take possession of it, it's going to be worth $1,200. So what the Gemara is suggesting is, as long as the price is known now, what we call Yotza Hashar, there's no problem. Why? It's very simple. It's actually fascinating. Da'amrle, because I want to say, I could say to Ruvain, right now I am the purchaser. I say to Ruvain, Da'amrle, Shakila tivusech v'shajiach izri. Literally, again, take your benefit and throw it on the thorn bushes. Which I will say sounds so much better in the Aramaic than it does in the translation. What it means is, you're not doing me any favors. Why? The Gemara says, my honestly, you're not benefiting me. So listen, now watch this. When the market price is known, I could have just as easily done what? What could I have done? Bought my own wheat and either hold it and sell it at a later date, or let the asset appreciate, or buy it here. Well, remember again, there are always places that you could sell stuff at a markup, right? Like, so the example the Gemara gives over here, Hini and Shili. See, Hini and Shili, Rashi says ultimately again were towns that were next to Pompadisa, but Aloch Alamais again didn't have access to commodities in the same way as the big city, which means that you could always sell stuff there at a markup. So we'll say, so essentially, what the Gemara says is like this: when it's Yatsa Ashar and the price is known, that means anyone could have bought this commodity at this price. So I say to Ruvain, you didn't do me any favors, right? See, even though I'm buying it today, I'm going to take possession of it in a year from now. So when I get it in a year from now, it's worth $1,200. Shkoyach. Ruvain, you didn't do anything for me. I could have done this whole thing myself, right? In other words, I could have bought the wheat today also and either held it, let it appreciate, or what? Go take it and go and sell this somewhere else. So therefore, don't call this ribis, because in no way are you benefiting me, right? So literally, you haven't done me any favors. Or in other words, There's nothing you did for me that I could have done for myself. Amalei Abayla Rabbi Yosef, Elamiato, Motre the Lavo, Sa'a B'Sa'a, Mishum the Matzi, Amalei Shakila, Tuvasech V'Shajiach Izri. So we'll say, if that's the case, then why can't you lend Sa'a B'Sa'a? So we'll say, okay, this is another Rebbe's case. We had this in yesterday's daf as well. We'll say, what's Sa'a B'Sa'a? What you can't do in halacha is, you can't lend a commodity for a commodity. So I can't lend you a bushel of apples and say, give me back a bushel of apples. Since the commodity changes values, we're concerned that it looks like ribbis. But why don't I say the same thing over here? Say the same thing over here. Let's say if I borrow a bushel of, if I lend Reuven a bushel of apples, and he gives me a bushel of apples, why don't we say the same thing? Shakila tivu sefer shajech izri damarlei chiti dekatria ba'akal boy. So we'll say at the end of the day, say the same thing. It should be mutter to lend a sa'a for a sa'a. We'll talk about this more. Because again, we'll say, I can say them literally translated, right? My wheat would not have gone bad. Would my wheat have gone bad by sitting out? In other words, you didn't do anything for me. Rashi says over here, chiti da'akatri ba'akal boy, betmiya, v'chi imenachti chitin shali ba'otzarai, klum hayu gisham yardin aleim. Would anything have happened to my produce had I left it alone? Amarle hasam halva hachazivini. We'll say, here's the difference. The case of Sa'a B'Sa'a, we'll say, is a loan. Remember, we'll say, loans, we're always more sensitive to things that look like ribbis by loans than by sales. So we'll say, so ultimately, again, remember, in the case of the forward contract, of the future, right, psika laperos, that's a sale. That's a sale. So we're much more comfortable. So as long as the price is known, I will say, now I understand it. As long as the price is known, there's not going to be any issue of ribbis. In a loan, sa'a b'sa'a, we're much more sensitive to that. So we'll say, the Gemara says, Amar le Ada bar Abba l'Rava, v'habai l'mesav zuzi liv saf sira. I will say, but you are saving some money, because otherwise you'd have to give money to a broker to arrange the transaction. You're saving brokerage money. No, okay, fine. So you have to give the brokerage money. That part you have to pay. Rav Ashi says, no, Zuzi de inchi inu avdilei safsaris is a great line. A person's money, your money is your broker. What does it mean your money is your broker? So we'll say, when I have money to spend, people find me. You don't have to worry about the brokerage fee. Money is the best broker. So we'll have to stop over here for today. So we'll say, this is actually very exciting, because what we've actually ended off with today, is, we picked up a number of pieces along the way, but for our purposes, what we've established is psika la peros, which is halacha l'maisa, again, a future contract, so I'm giving money now, to get something at a later date. Just to point out, there are two ways that a transaction like that could occur, right? Either a simple sale. There is just a simple sale. I go over to Reuven, here's $1,000. I'm buying $1,000 of wheat. I'll take possession of it in a year from now. Right? So that's one possibility. Possibility two is a converted loan. I lent Reuven $1,000, and now we want to convert the loan into a commodity. Halacha l'maisa will say, why does this have the appearance of ribbis? Why? Because halacha l'maisa, or rabbinic ribbis, because halacha l'maisa, at a future date, when I take possession of the item, it may be worth more than it's worth now. Two ways to circumvent ribbis in a psika ala peros transaction: either Raboshia yeshlo, you have the commodity, or Avdimi, or Rabbi Yanai yatsa hashar. We know the current price. Because again, if Reuven has it, then it's as if I've already taken possession of it. And if the price is known, then halacha l'maisa, I could say, Reuven, not doing me any big tova over here. I could have done this entire transaction myself. Rosai, who said ribbis is not great? I want to be clear. Ribbis is not great. Right? Ribbis is also, but fasting nevertheless. Oh, we're going to have to get through it. Brokers. Yeah, we have to get through all of it in Hashem. We're going to see.